Hi, and welcome back. I sincerely hope you've decided to join me for the 3 very important strategy sessions I'm preparing right now, all scheduled for next week. If so, use the button below this video screen at any time, and I'll make sure you get the 4 reports we'll be discussing in those sessions, as well as instructions for attending. Now, to help me prepare for that, I've asked you to answer a very important question for me. I asked you to tell me what concerns you most when it comes to your family's safety and the safety of your investments. And I've listened to your messages, and I've read your answers very carefully. And what I've seen and heard has moved me deeply. See, I've never seen a time when our friends and readers were more worried about the future. I've never seen a time when both safety and the immediate need to grow wealth were of greater concern. Our readers' fears overwhelmingly center on 2 major problems: the reality of chaos around the globe today and the dangers posed by Washington's mismanagement of the U.S. economy. So today I've asked Mike Bernick to read some of your comments so I can address some of your most urgent concerns. And in the process, I'm going to alert you to 6 common pitfalls to avoid.
Okay, Martin, let's start with John R., who says, I am 78 years old and retired after roughly 35 years in the investment management business, and I've never seen an environment such as we have today. There are so many things that worry me domestically, financially, as well as in the global situation. I just don't know where to start. And he goes on to say, we are faced with the following: debt levels never seen before with a slim chance or intent to pay them back. The threat of the U.S. dollar losing its reserve currency status sooner than most people now predict, a worsening geopolitical situation throughout the world, and no evident world leader stepping up. For the first time in my life, the threat of radical Islamic terrorism, which is very probable right here in the U.S., and a nation that's more divided now than at any time since the American Civil War.
You know, I couldn't have said it better myself. Overseas, you have the rising tide of violence, and here at home, you have record debt, record money printing, record low interest rates. Those 2 are indeed a toxic brew. So this leads me to the first pitfall to avoid: low quality investments. You know, there are thousands of stocks in the world today that seem attractive on the surface, but in reality, they're pure garbage. They're illiquid. They're poorly managed. They're high risk. And by the way, I'd like to send you a complete list of them next week. Now, the second pitfall, which ties back to this as well, is the traditional buy and hold approach to investing. Yeah, sure, as long as the market is generally rising, you can buy, you can hold, and you can kind of tag along. But if you want to avoid portfolio busting losses in a world that's so uncertain, if you want to sidestep all this turmoil, I don't think buy and hold is a wise way to go.
Mary L. says, this is far too scary for me. I just want to sit this one out.
Oh, okay, I understand. But, you know, I think that's actually another pitfall, and that's going to the other extreme of withdrawing from investing entirely. Wealth building is really no longer an option. It's a must. Like I stressed here last time on Tuesday, you're going to need money in order to insulate yourself from the geopolitical and the financial threats. You're going to need money to live in the world's safest places. You're going to need money to be less dependent on the job market and to better secure your retirement. And you're going to need money to preserve your personal freedoms.
Yes, Richard F. puts it this way. I am extremely fearful, worried, and concerned about the future. I only have Social Security income and a part-time job at a grocery store. Living costs are escalating at a pace I will not be able to handle in about 2 years. Martin, I think investors like Richard fear their life savings could be wiped out in a heartbeat, but they also want a single investment with leverage that can deliver big profits immediately.
I think that's another pitfall. What are we up to? Okay, pitfall number 4. I'm talking about excessive leverage. Haste makes waste. And as everyone knows, leverage is a double-edged sword. It can amplify your profits, but it can also amplify your losses.
Another reader.
Hold that for a second, because I also have another pitfall I want to talk about that ties back to what that last reader said, and that's pitfall number 5, bad diversification. Many investors want just one magic investment. Other investors still think they're diversified simply because they buy a mutual fund that has a bunch of stocks in it. But in today's topsy-turvy world, that is simply not enough. You've got to spread your money among different industries. You've got to spread your money among different asset classes. And when the time is right, even among different countries.
Now we go to Lawrence C., who expands on the concerns Richard expressed just a moment ago. He says, the world we live in is fraught with barbarians who are now at our gates. I'm not predicting apocalypse, mind you, but I am fearful for my daughter and grandchildren.
And so am I. And so am I. And that comment, by the way, pertains to pitfall number 6, which is the failure to prepare for a black swan event. I'm talking about events that strike from out of the blue, that virtually no one can predict ahead of time. In 1998, for example, you had Russia, which defaulted on its debt and then precipitated a near collapse in the global financial system. Then on 9/11, it was the terrorist attacks, which, by the way, also shut down all U.S. stock exchanges. Then if you fast forward 7 years to 2008, you had the Lehman Brothers failure, which almost caused a global financial meltdown. Those were black swan events. And by the way, black swan events are not always negative or bad. Consider, for example, the fall of the Berlin Wall or the end of any major war. Those kinds of black swan events can also pave the way for years of prosperity.
And Martin Lawrence C. has another question. He asks, where do we put our faith and hard-earned money to work where we can sleep peacefully and get a reasonable return on our investment without extreme risk? A plan laid out which spans a long-term horizon with protection and, when indicated, the opportunity to change course without excessive risk.
Yes, well, good, Lawrence, thank you. And you're not asking for the moon here. And I also applaud the fact that despite everything, you're not hiding your head in the sand. You've not given up on growing your wealth, and you realize that with the right plan, with the right strategy, it should be possible to get through this with your wealth intact and growing. And that's precisely what I plan to give you next week in a series of 3 videos. So if you tell me you're coming, I'll send you the 4 important lists that I'm going to be talking about. That's stocks with the highest Weiss ratings on our buy list, stocks with the lowest Weiss ratings on our sell now list, and also we have 2 similar lists for ETFs. So just click below the screen so I can know you're coming. And then next week, when I send you the list, I'll also email you the exact time, the link, and the instructions for attending. You know, this is such a pivotal time we're going through. We have tipping points in virtually all markets and in both directions. So let's get through it together with our money intact and growing. Thank you very much.